I'm 80 years old, retired union electrician, 41 years of crawling through attics, pulling wire, and smiling at people I didn't even like because I wanted to be the good one, the dependable one, the impressive one. Here's the shocking part. I spent more time auditioning for other people than I spent living my own life. And the crowd, half of them weren't even watching. They were staring at their own mirrors. I used to think respect was something you earned by polishing yourself until you shined. New truck, crisp shirt, firm handshake. Never let them see you sweat. Never let them see you hurt. I grew up on that. South side of Chicago, 1950s. My father's rule was simple. Carry yourself right, and nobody can talk down to you. I believed him. I carried myself right for decades, and still I went home with my shoulders up around my ears, tight as a fist. A few months after my 79th birthday, I was standing in my kitchen in the dark, listening to the refrigerator hum like a tired old engine, and I realized something that made my stomach drop. I couldn't remember the last time I did something purely because I wanted to. Not because it looked good. Not because it sounded responsible. Not because it would make somebody say, "Now that's a man." Just because it felt like mine. That night, it felt like a weight lifted too late. But it lifted. And I'm telling you now, with whatever time I've got left, why I stopped trying to impress anyone. When I was 24, I met a man named Calvin Price. Everybody called him Cal. He was my foreman on a downtown high-rise job in 1970, cold wind whipping off the lake like it had teeth. Cal wore the same brown wool coat every day, elbows shiny from years of leaning on railings. His hands were thick, nicked up, always smelling like metal and black coffee. He kept a red thermos that dented on one side, and he'd pour coffee into a chipped enamel cup like it was some kind of ritual. One morning, I came in late. Not wildly late, 7 minutes. But I was young, proud, hungry, the kind of hungry that makes you think the world is taking notes. I had on a brand new pair of boots I couldn't afford. I'd put them on the counter the night before like a trophy. I also had this fresh haircut, sharp line-up, because I wanted the older guys to see me and think, "He's serious. He's going places." Cal didn't raise his voice. He didn't curse me out. He just looked at my boots, then at my face and said, "Son, you dressing for the job, or you dressing for the audience?" I laughed like it was a joke. I said something smart, something cocky. I said, "Gotta look the part, right?" Cal took a slow sip of coffee and stared past me at the city, grey and tall and indifferent. Then he said, "The audience will clap while you bleed. Don't confuse noise for care." That line hit me, but it didn't change me. Not then, because I still wanted the claps. I wanted the nods. I wanted to be the young man they pointed at. 2 weeks later, a guy named Eddie slipped on a wet plywood sheet. Broke his wrist bad. I still remember the sound. Not screaming. More like a dull crack and then silence, the kind that makes your skin tighten. Eddie sat on a stack of rebar, pale, sweating, trying to laugh it off because pride is a disease in working men. The supervisor from the office came down in a clean coat, asked a few questions, then walked away like he was stepping over a puddle. At lunch, Cal sat next to Eddie and held that chipped cup out to him like an offering. He said, "You're not a machine. Don't die trying to prove you are." Eddie was back on the job 3 weeks later, still swollen, still stiff because he didn't want to look weak. He wanted approval more than healing. By 32, his hands shook. By 45, he was gone. Heart attack. The audience clapped at his retirement dinner too. Speeches, plaques, smiles. Then they replaced his name on the schedule, like erasing chalk. I want you to hear me. The cost of impressing people is not paid in compliments. It's paid in your body, your marriage, your peace, and you don't get refunds. And I know you're thinking, that's just old school job talk. No, this is life talk. Because some of you are doing the same thing in nicer clothes. You're showing up to your own life like it's a performance review. You're watching yourself from the outside, adjusting, editing, apologizing for being human. Let me talk to you directly. You, the one still checking the room before you decide what you really think. The one who can't rest because resting feels like being judged. You're not driven. You're trained. Trained to chase approval like a dog chasing a car. Not because it will feed you, but because it keeps you running. Here's the hard truth. If you need everybody to like you, you will never be free. Never. Because people's opinions are like weather. You can dress for it, plan for it, pray about it, and it still changes on you in 10 minutes. You'll be adored on Monday and questioned on Tuesday. You'll be inspiring until you say no, until you set a boundary, until you stop being useful. External validation is a slot machine. You keep pulling the lever. Sometimes you win. A compliment, a like, a promotion, a must be nice, and that little hit feels like oxygen. Then it fades, so you pull again and again. And one day you look up and realize you've spent 10 years in a noisy room, feeding quarters into a machine that never loved you back. You think impressing people keeps you safe. It doesn't. It keeps you owned. It makes your life a rental. You decorate it for visitors. You keep it clean for critics. You keep the lights on for people who won't even pay the bill. Let me ask you something you might not like. When was the last time you told the truth about what you wanted, even if it made you look selfish? When was the last time you disappointed someone and didn't scramble to fix it? You say you want peace, but you keep choosing applause. You keep choosing the mask, and masks get heavy. They don't just cover your face, they cover your whole life. I learned that lesson again, in a different way, from a woman named Lorraine. 1987, I was 41. I remember the year because my son Marcus was starting middle school and my daughter Denise had braces that cost $600, and I thought money was the only language that mattered. Lorraine worked at the credit union where we refinanced the house. She had a soft voice, but eyes that didn't blink when you tried to impress her. I walked in wearing my best suit. Not a fancy suit, just my serious man suit. Navy jacket, pressed slacks, shiny shoes. I brought a folder like I was presenting evidence in court. Pay stubs, certificates, union cards, letters from supervisors. I wanted her to see I was solid, worthy. I wanted approval stamped in ink. Lorraine looked through my paperwork, nodded politely, and then asked me a question that felt like a hand reaching into my chest. She said, "Mr. Johnson, do you like your life?" I smiled like it was small talk. I said, "I'm blessed. I'm working. Kids are healthy." She didn't smile back. She leaned forward, elbows on the desk, and said, "That's not what I asked." The office smelled like carpet cleaner and paper. A little plastic plant sat in the corner collecting dust. A clock on the wall ticked loud enough to make me angry. I stared at my folder like it could save me, and for a few seconds I couldn't speak, because the answer was, I don't know. I had built a life that looked responsible from the outside. 2 cars, mortgage, BBQ grill, church on Sundays, and I was proud of it. But inside I was tense all the time. I was chasing good husband, good father, good provider, good neighbor. I was chasing good. And I didn't notice I wasn't chasing joy at all. Lorraine tapped the folder and said something I can still hear, clear as a bell. "You can finance a house," she said, "but you can't finance time." That hit me harder than Cal's coffee cup, because it wasn't about work. It was about my whole strategy, my whole belief that if I kept proving myself, life would eventually hand me peace like a trophy. 2 years later, 1989, my wife Angela sat at the edge of the bed at 11:47 p.m. I remember the time because I checked the alarm clock like it was a witness. She said, "I don't need you to be impressive. I need you to be here." And I told her I was tired. I told her I was doing it for the family. I told her she didn't understand pressure. I said the words men say when they're afraid of being ordinary. Angela died in 2008. Stroke. Fast. Unfair. And do you know what my mind played on repeat after the funeral? Not my promotions. Not my new truck. Not the compliments. It played that sentence. "I need you to be here." That was my emotional peak. Not tears in public. Not speeches. It was sitting alone at my kitchen table, staring at a mug I didn't wash, realizing I had been trying to impress the world while the person I loved most was begging for my real presence. And you can't go back. You can't apologize your way into yesterday. You can't impress death. Death doesn't clap. So here's the second teaching. The paradox. The more you chase approval, the less connected you become. You think you're building a reputation, but you're losing relationships. You think you're building security, but you're building distance. You think you're being strong, but you're refusing to be known. This generation has new tools for the same old trap. We used to chase approval from bosses and neighbors on the porch. Now you can chase it from strangers on a screen at 2 a.m. You can edit your face, edit your life, edit your story until it's acceptable. And then you wonder why you feel lonely, because you've made yourself into a product. And products don't get hugged, they get evaluated. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The people worth keeping are not impressed by your performance, they are moved by your honesty. The people who love you don't need you to be flawless, they need you to be real. And the people who demand constant proving, they're not your people, they're your audience. And audiences leave when the show ends. Actionable insight. Stop negotiating your identity. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Every time you abandon your truth to win someone's approval, you teach your nervous system that you are unsafe as you are. And then you spend years trying to earn permission to exist. I'm 80 now. My knees talk to me before I stand up. My hands aren't as steady threading a fishing line. My hearing isn't what it was, but my mind is clearer than it has ever been, because I'm not running that approval race anymore. My current state is simple. I wake up around 6:30 a.m. I make oatmeal with too much cinnamon. I sit by the window and watch the light move across the floor like it's telling me the truth. I keep a small notebook by my chair, not a planner, a notebook. I write down what I'm grateful for, and I write down what I'm avoiding, because avoidance is where your life leaks out. What matters now is different than what mattered at 35. Back then, I cared about being respected. I cared about being needed. I cared about being seen as strong. Now, I care about being calm. I care about telling the truth. I care about calling my grandchildren and actually listening, not lecturing. I care about eating dinner without hurrying. I care about apologizing quickly when I'm wrong. Here's the vulnerability. There are nights I still feel that old itch. The itch to prove. Somebody makes a comment. Somebody questions me. And a younger version of me wakes up, ready to fight for status like it's oxygen. But then I breathe. I remember Angela. I remember Cal. I remember Lorraine. And I tell myself, slowly, like medicine, you don't have to win this moment. You just have to live it. Wisdom distilled. You will never impress your way into peace. Peace comes when you stop handing your self-worth to other people like a tip jar. Peace comes when you decide you are not an application. You are a human being. So let me give you action steps, not slogans. Steps. Things you can do this week, not someday. Do one small thing each day that nobody applauds. Wash the dishes slowly. Take a walk without tracking it. Read 10 pages without posting a quote. Why? Because it retrains your brain to find value without an audience. It teaches you that your life is yours, even when no one is watching. Stop explaining your no. Say it clean. No, I can't. No, that doesn't work for me. Then be quiet. Why? Because long explanations are just you begging for permission. People who respect you don't need a courtroom speech. And people who don't respect you won't be convinced anyway. Identify your impressing trigger and name it out loud. Mine was authority. If a boss frowned, I panicked. Yours might be your mother's disappointment, your friend's group chat, your partner's silence, your ex's opinion. Write it down. I perform when it a tea. Why? Because what you can name, you can notice. And what you can notice, you can change. Trade one status purchase for one peace purchase. Not forever. Just once. Skip the flashy thing. Buy the comfortable chair. Pay for the therapy session. Take the unpaid day off. Put $50 toward a weekend with your kid instead of $50 toward looking rich. Why? Because your spending reveals who you're trying to impress. And peace is a better investment than image. Practice disappointing people on purpose in low-stakes ways. Wear the plain shirt. Admit you don't know. Say, I changed my mind. Let someone be mildly unhappy with you and don't rush to fix it. Why? Because tolerance for discomfort is the doorway to freedom. If you can't handle someone's temporary disappointment, you will be trapped forever. If you do these things, you won't become rude. You won't become selfish. You'll become solid. And solid people don't need applause. They need alignment. I'll close where I started. I'm 80 years old. I've buried friends who were stronger than me. I've watched time move like a thief with good manners. It doesn't kick the door in. It just keeps walking, quiet, taking what you never thought you'd lose. So feel the urgency, but don't panic. Let it sharpen you. You don't have decades to be a version of yourself you don't even like. You don't have unlimited mornings. You don't have infinite chances to be present with the people who actually matter. Here's my final challenge. Give yourself permission to be unimpressive. Give yourself permission to be ordinary. Give yourself permission to be honest. Because the day you stop trying to impress everyone is the day you finally meet yourself. All right, that's it. Take what helps, leave the rest.